Good morning, everybody. Today is a fabulous day. We are talking to one of the experts from one of my most favorite companies, Enverus. We are talking to Sarp Ozkan, and we are going to talk energy, renewables, ESG, and we're going to talk about the future of all of this kind of stuff. And for everybody, this is Sarp 2.0, version 2.0. We had a missed recording going on a while ago, and Sarp, thank you for stopping by the podcast.
Absolutely. Happy to do so, Stu.
Now, we were chit-chatting just before the production here, and we were sitting here kind of going, Sarp is going on vacation, but he's going on vacation to where there's a typhoon getting ready to hit or a hurricane, and he's in a wedding. So I'm the only thing between him and a wedding. So, he's got to finish up today. So Sarp, welcome, and I hope we have a little bit of fun.
We will, I'm sure.
But that was a really good, and I guess I need to ask more in-depth open questions. So here we go. Sarp, you're with the energy group. You're working in the renewables and sectors. What are you seeing in the corporate strategy for renewables for Enverus? What are your key things you're working on right now?
Right now, we're really working on making sure that our platform is inclusive of everything energy. As you know, Enverus has always been a leader in the oil and gas part of the energy vertical, but since we started the power and renewables vertical, we've been able to grow it to be inclusive of all of the power and renewables, right, powers that be, and give it to you in the same platform. Now we continue to grow our solutions in that space, but we're also adding more and more of the CCUS, hydrogen, other solutions that are key to understanding the whole of the energy transition, because right, we are striving always to be the solution provider for the whole energy space, not just one piece of it.
So when we talk about your services and your products, when you're trying to get data to anybody that needs data in the engineering or energy space, what are you seeing? Because the percentages for wind and solar, and you mentioned hydrogen. So let's drill down a little bit on hydrogen. How much of it out there right now is even hydrogen-based energy?
Minuscule amount. So not even worth putting into percentages, right? The hydrogen space is very, very nascent. It's going to be growing over time, sure, but we don't expect hydrogen to be a major player in any of these markets for at least another 5 years.
And it's because the technology is not there. It's just, how are you going to make plants out of that? How are you going to generate electricity and those kind of things, right?
Yeah, the technology and the economics still need a push.
Okay. Now, so when you see power generation, we're seeing an increase around the world for coal because of the Russian debacle going on over there, the invasion. In the U.S., are we seeing, we've got $8 and some change on nat gas. Nat gas appears to not be a seasonal gas anymore because of the demand for electricity. What's your thoughts on non-seasonal here?
Well, I think natural gas prices are a function of what's going on globally, as well as a function of what's going on here. I mean, of course, the prices actually only came down to where they are today because of what happened with the LNG terminal and the outage there, allowing us to replenish some of our low natural gas reserves here in the United States. Right. However, where we have our natural gas reserves, the cheapest natural gas reserves, we don't have the takeaway capacity or the willingness to build takeaway capacity.
So you're referring to the Marcellus in that area?
I am absolutely referring to that area, yes.
does seem kind of funny that they've got some of the best natural gas reserves, 1 day drive, but yet they're having to import LNG from Norway, Russia, I think Trinidad. You may have to correct me on that, and paying European prices.
Yes, and our resources here are bottlenecked in terms of being able to get to market. Absolutely.
So with all of our exports going on as we export out through the Gulf, I mean, we've got wonderful LNG companies out there. We're going through the port of Corpus Christi. We got everything going out. Do you think that that demand or being pulled out is going to keep that price at the $8 range from now on? Because normally we drop down during the summer.
Yes, the biggest issue right now is the global balance, right? And when LNG is tied to that global market, you're going to start to see these prices continue to be high, maybe not as high as we see them today. And it really does depend on what the situation looks like with Russia, both right now as well as once we get past this. We don't know at what capacity these fields are going to be able to come back online from Russia.
Right.
It's very important to note these are very old fields that if you shut these in, there is going to be some issues bringing these volumes back online at the same level they were before.
So there's a couple things you just brought up. And as we take a look at the natural gas, you have the EU saying, hey, we need to shut it off. And then you have like Germany getting their first floating LNG degasification, and they're excited about one. One LNG import facility is not going to replace everything that they need.
Absolutely.
That's going to be a chore, isn't it?
Yeah. The plain and simple of it is that there is an absolute energy crisis globally in terms of the security of supply.
Right.
And that's both here and abroad. Yeah, sure, we do have the resources here that we could technically solve our own security issues with, but we can't unless, of course, we're able to build the infrastructure to be able to get it to the markets that we need to utilize them in. And the rest of the security issues are also something that we need to address if we want to be cognizant of the fact that we need a energy transition as a whole throughout the globe, not just the United States.
So, the fun thing I like about visiting with you before, and that is it's not a matter of whether or not we transition. We do need to head to carbon net zero carbon. And when you totally get rid and go to renewables and get rid of anything. And so that's pretty important. And it doesn't matter what source of energy we use. I love the fact that you're really focusing on everything on the corporate side, looking at all those kind of things. How do we get to energy secure again and being independent?
Well, energy secure and being independent is going to be very, very tough in sort of a net zero type of environment, right? We always talk about the tailwinds for the actual energy evolution, but there are a lot of headwinds in the way of that. One of them is actually the security of the supplies, the minerals you need to be able to actually build solar and wind farms and EVs and batteries and all of these different things, right? So if we think about where those reserves are concentrated, it's China, it's Democratic Republic of Congo, which I would say from an ESG perspective, they're probably not the places you want the mining to be done in relation to, our oil and gas production here or anything else for that matter, including labor laws, right? Labor laws there are not.
We don't want children mining things. That does not happen in the U.S.
Children, forced labor, these are issues that are brought up in relation to the Democratic Republic of Congo and China on a regular basis, right? These things, because they are so far down the, I guess, line, the industrial manufacturing line of it, they're well ignored. And there is that mentality of, yeah, I've made up my mind on trying to change it. When it comes to talking about the dangers of that sort of dependence on those countries for these minerals. Additionally, there's other headwinds too. I mean, if we think about trying to go to a net zero sort of environment too quickly, we're going to have some equality issues in access to electricity, right? We're
going to have some equality issues.
Yeah, so the concept of a just transition is that, you know, everybody globally should be able to benefit from this energy transition. Well, if you're one of the 750 million to a billion people without access to electricity worldwide, if now you can't have that coal plant or that natural gas plant even, or that, you know, oil-fired power plant go online because of these environmental constraints, is that necessarily fair to you? Additionally, there's even more people with access to electricity, but not necessarily access to clean cooking in a lot of senses, right? All of these things need to be figured out. I mean, this energy transition should not be a, hey, here's the formula for how we're going to get to net zero, and everybody's going to do it, because it's just not going to work that way. We need to be able to play all of the different scenarios out as we go. That's why I don't think about it as a transition, but as an evolution. There's going to be bumps along the road. There's going to be commodity price volatility. There's going to be issues with certain regions that we have to figure out. Are we just going to let that region sort of catch up, or are we going to fund it? Who's going to fund it? Are the people funding it going to be okay with that? Or are the people getting the funding going to be okay with getting the funding and being beholden to the funding, right? All of these things are going to be a part of the mix. So I think we get a very, very singular when we think about net zero on where we live and what we look at. So in the United States, we're focused on us being able to go to net zero. Yeah, sure, maybe we can, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that net zero is going to be secure, or it's going to be something that we're going to be able to disseminate across the whole globe, as an example. First world country.
Well, Sarp, you bring up some fantastic points, and I didn't mean to compliment you, but too bad. You did great. You got some great points in there, and that's like China. Why would you want to be beholden to China? Because in Africa, just as you mentioned, they are bringing all of the cash and saying, you know, hey, you're going to go to green, you're going to buy it from us, right? I wouldn't want to be beholden to China. What about you?
I absolutely would not want to. I mean, that's the situation that we're in today, right? If we think about the supply chain issues are one thing. There's global supply chain issues, but we're also dealing with this auction, anti-circumvention, anti-dumping issue right now, where one of the small producers of panels in the United States has asked the U.S. to look deeper into whether or not China has been sending some of these goods that are should be in beholden to tariffs through some of the other South Asian countries, and that investigation kicked off. Biden just came out and allowed for there to be a 2-year moratorium on any of those tariffs from those four countries in particular. But that 2-year period of time, there's still uncertainty after that period of time. We're not going to transition to net zero in 2 years. And also on top of that, we know that even in the coming 2 years, these supply chain issues are going to continue to persist. So costs are coming up, and the economics of solar projects in particular, they target high single-digit, low double-digit returns. So any sort of increase in panel costs are impactful.
Right.
But at the same time, they're going to kind of come out of the taxpayer's pocket because the investment tax credit covers 30% of whatever that cost increase is, because that's what the ITC allows them to get 26% today.
So how do we get to the lowest kilowatt per hour for even the disproportionately impacted communities in the US? You know, it just seems like they're always the ones that are getting it in the drive-through, so to speak, and the countries, you just hit it right on the nose. India is using more and more coal because they need power, regardless of what it is. Absolutely. And I believe I just saw something that coal use is up in the U.S. and it was dwindling down big time. What are you seeing for the short term with the energy crisis? Are we seeing more coal and more natural gas? Are we seeing a real problem with more renewables coming online? I'm going to ask one more kind of a question on here, and that is, what about energy storage? You just brought up the point about rare earth minerals and everything else. How are we going to be able to get to more renewables without the energy storage, without using more coal? Because it seems like that trend is now more coal.
Yeah, so we actually have seen coal plants running during this time. They have to. And natural gas usage is where it is, but
right,
because the price is so high, you find that in some cases coal plants are actually competitive.
Right.
In areas. And renewables, yeah, sure, they're running because there's no cost to their input, of course. Right. And their credits allow them to run even at negative, especially on the wind side. But what we have to take into consideration is even as we continue to add these wind and solar farms to the grid, and they can provide this electricity that we need, one thing that we don't focus a lot on is the ability of the grid to handle that. These intermittent sources of energy being put into different parts of the grid where they have to travel large distances to get to the load center is not great. We saw that in, for example, the wind corridor up in northwest Texas has to send all of its electricity down to Dallas and to Houston, right? That's not very good because, well, we can't build any more wind turbines over there. We don't have the capacity to take it over. Building transmission is very expensive. So now you got to put it closer and closer to those demand centers.
Oh, yeah.
The other opportunity is put storage on the grid. Now, storage is absolutely coming along. There's a lot of storage projects out there, and storage should be able to do a lot of things that we need it to do to be able to make sure the grid is stable and the wind and solar energy can be used when it's really needed during the peak hours of our day in the afternoon when we get home, turn on the lights and our TVs and start watching.
Let me ask a little bit on storage, because I got two things that are, you see the memes that are out there. And again, I love memes. I don't know how whoever creates these things are brilliant, but you see all the memes about storage and there's fire burning, and you always, you feel that storage units, I wouldn't want a storage unit next to my house because it seems like lithium batteries in the storage units have a tendency to be expensive and catch fire. Is that a myth?
I would say, Stu, that I wouldn't want the first generation of anything right next to me, but at some point we do need to get comfortable with these technologies, because that is chemical runaway, sort of thermal runaway issues, all things that we really do look at and build over time, and the safety and standards are always going towards the better side. I think I'm comfortable with the battery storage sites as much as I'm comfortable with any other sort of well or oil and gas storage site near
So, Sarp, you wouldn't mind a modular nuke in your neighborhood then?
Well, not the first one, as I said, but the second generation, I'll think about it.
Those seem like they are wonderful technology. I don't know enough about that market. Are you guys really looking at that market?
It's absolutely interesting. It's definitely interesting. The issue is, again, cost and, well, uptake from consumers, and also the outrage from everybody else. Those are what's really interesting. And of course, the costs are, right, at the end of the day, the most important driver of whether, right, or not you're going to adopt technology at scale. Right. So but, I think it's got a ways to go as well.
You know, you and I have just been really enjoying talking about going to carbon net zero, but it seems like nuclear would be one of the easiest ways to get there.
Absolutely. I think nuclear is one of those things that you can't overlook the importance of, right, in terms of the ability to quickly, reliably, and cleanly move to a net zero environment.
But as we look at nuclear and we take a look at the new technologies coming around the corner, you know, the modular nukes, those seem to be pretty intriguing to me. I don't know enough about them. As Enverus looking for those, have you all been really looking at the financial aspect of it? Let me back up, Sarp. I kind of got sidetracked. The meantime, or the life expectancy of wind farms is what, 20 years ballpark? Again, I'm throwing that number out there.
Yeah, let's call it 30.
30?
We're being nice.
Okay. How about meantime between failure on those things?
Oh, well, you're going to have some repowering done in those 30 years.
Right. I've seen some numbers on that meantime between failure that 30 numbers kind of tough. Mm-hmm. And backing back into what the service numbers are on those, if you remove the tax credits on that, and then you looked at the meantime between failure, a nuclear does make it cheaper in order to run. You know, when you take a look at the life expectancy of nuclear versus the cost of renewables, I really think the technology for renewables is going to get there. But nuclear does seem to have the cost advantage.
You know, we haven't looked at the cost advantage of nukes at large, particularly because we don't know what the new technologies really look like, because we haven't really had a lot of new nukes put into place.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So I think if you think about where the technology was the last time we built a nuke in the United States, right, I'm not sure, right? But at this point in time, I would say that, you know, we need to consider where the nuclear technology has come, both from a modular perspective as well, right, as we call it the utility scale, large scale, sort of mega utility scale, I'll call it, right, nuclear gas can do. So I think it absolutely has a place to play in the energy mix, as long as it's allowed by, right, what's going to be put, right,
allowed by the market and those kind of folks. Yeah. Geothermal. I am a big geothermal fan, but I've just been visiting with folks about the new geothermal where they're able to use it out of oil field old wells. Have you guys even been hearing about that? Are you watching that as a technology?
Absolutely. Geothermal is, I mean, it's proven technology. Its economics work in parts. Right. Especially if you are able to utilize, you know, abandoned equipment, fields, etc. Right. Issue with it is it's hard to scale. That's going to be a game changer from a percentage of the energy mix perspective. Right. But are there projects out there that make sense? Absolutely.
See, I hadn't thought of that. I was so excited visiting with folks about that, Sarp. And do you think a model of locality then is what you're saying, because the cost of transmission lines, but a small city might take advantage of an oil field nearby. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And the
Okay.
amount of electricity generated, right? It's not going to be on par necessarily with some other
Right.
technologies.
Well, that's interesting. What do you see coming around the corner for Enverus?
For Enverus, oh, that's a good question. I mean,
Come on, here you go.
At Enverus, we've got so many things going at once all the time.
Isn't that
But
cool?
yeah, it makes it exciting. Absolutely. I think we're focused on both organic and inorganic growth,
Right.
making sure again to be cognizant of the fact that we want to serve the whole energy market, not
Yes.
letting any part of it out of our sights, so that we can put all of these different technologies
Right.
in front of us, understand, analyze,
Right.
and see, okay, is this one feasible? If it's feasible, where is it
Yep.
feasible? And how much of a role does it play, let's say in 2030, 2040, 2050?
Right.
And it's important to be able to see the whole picture, because otherwise
Right.
this energy transition will get away from you.
What's coming around the corner for Sarp personally? Besides
Oh,
your trip to go to a wedding.
yeah. For Sarp personally, I think we're looking forward to this summer. Me and my wife are living down in the Galveston area, so we're looking forward to getting out on the water and
Nice.
avoiding the heat.
Well, that sounds really cool. And Sarp, thank you very much for your time. I just really do appreciate it. And it seems like what we've talked about is Enverus is really the single point of truth for data and energy. I really like the way that it's true. So
Yep, that's what we're going for. It's one team and one platform for one energy market. So
well, I do appreciate you and thanks, and look forward to seeing you again, sir. Thank you.
thanks. Look forward to it, Steve.
Thanks.